Hello and welcome to Building Solid Foundations. I'm your host, Steve Matley, President of Coast to Coast Equities Incorporated and Chair of Construction Management at New School of Architecture and Design. Today we're going to talk about the latter of those positions, and that is specifically about construction management education. Today I have three alums of New School, all working in the field in construction management. To my immediate right is Emily Michael. She is a lead GA and a CMIT, a field engineer with Hensel Phelps. Welcome, Emily.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Next to Emily, we have Athena Valdivino. She is a project engineer with Swinnerton Builders.
Thank you, Steve.
And on the far end over there is Timothy Sparhawk. He is a project engineer with Balfour Beatty.
How you doing?
So all three of you have gone through either a bachelor's or master's degree program in construction management, gone out into the field, and are working currently in the construction field building pretty large projects. So what I want to talk about is kind of what it takes to be qualified to do those kind of jobs. So I'll start with you, Emily. I know you started off in the design world and
Correct.
made a change over to construction management. So what does it take to do your job over at Hensel Phelps?
I think it takes a little bit of knowledge about a whole lot of things.
Okay.
You're not necessarily the expert about anything. You're not an electrician, you're not a plumber, and you're not trying to be, but you have to be able to speak their language, and you have to be able to communicate effectively with all of those trades, and then be the go-between as well, which is sometimes the hardest part, between the field and the trades and an owner or a designer. And sometimes that can be a real challenge, translating trade speak to design speak.
Okay, and you have an undergrad in construction management.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay, and that qualified you to get into the world that you're in now. Is that right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Now, Athena, you actually were architecture background initially, undergrad architecture, and then took a master's degree in construction management. Is that created more of an advantage for you? You're at Swinnerton, a different company. So how does that play out?
Oh, it's definitely an advantage because I can talk to architects with that lexicon of architecture that I learned in my undergrad. And also, I mean, I take my own, my own agency in this, but I'll draw things and say like, hey, does this work? And the architect will be like, oh, wow, actually, you know what, that does work. Or if we change this, they'll work with it. And that's been an exciting thing, to take that education that I got in my undergrad and translate it to the design team, where it becomes like a workable solution in the field.
Okay, and Swinnerton, of course, they specialize in design build, where they kind of do the multidiscipline idea, right?
That's one of our big markets.
Okay, so that's a good fit for you. And Tim, you work over at Balfour Beatty. You are graduating extremely soon, in about 4 weeks, right? And you're done. All right, and what are you doing over at Balfour Beatty? What kind of projects are you working on?
So we're working on whole site modernization right now on the Hoy High School. So it's about $45 million. So we're pretty much re-renovating the whole school. And I kind of liked what Emily said about you got to have a little bit knowledge about everything and communication, because the communication there, you have to talk to everybody. You have to really be on the ball and be able to communicate with everybody, because if you don't, you can turn into a crazy mess really quick.
Okay, so the technical skill is knowing a little bit about electrical, about drywall, about masonry, about concrete, about steel, whatever. But the soft skill, which you just mentioned, is the communication side of that. Did the college program help you with that?
Oh, definitely. No, yeah, college, New School, I mean, we really work in teams. So the big thing there is that we have communication going all the time. And we're so close with, let's say, construction management students working with the architects. Like as Athena said, like her knowledge in architecture is super strong, but someone like me coming out of the military or something like that, not knowing much about any assets of construction, to put those two groups together in a strong school and making us work together, it really kind of like gives everybody a full round knowledge of construction, of where it comes from to the end.
Okay.
So.
And being construction management, obviously a CM degree is the obvious choice. However, of course, like Athena, you did a bachelor's degree in architecture and then did a master's in CM. I myself do not have a CM degree. I have a business degree. So there are other degrees that you can actually get that would feed into this. I would say architecture, engineering, business-related type degrees would probably work as well. But I would recommend, as Athena did, maybe that master's degree in CM if you didn't have the CM-specific degree. Probably help a lot. So what kind of things do you cover in a CM degree that actually prepare you to work in this environment?
I know for me, a lot of my counterparts that started around the same time or within a year or two of me have engineering degrees, specifically a civil or a structural engineering. And they definitely have some strengths that I don't have or that I've had to learn on the job as far as reading plans go, interpreting schematics and things like that we didn't so much focus on in the construction management. But I also came in knowing how to read and write and use a contract and how to use a specifications booklet and where to go to find this information. And having that set of skills has definitely been a huge asset over just knowing how to read the blueprints as the engineering backgrounds, I think, find.
Okay. And the CM degree kind of looks at an overall perspective of the project. It's sort of this 30,000-foot elevation view of how we look at it. So Athena, when you're working on the projects, because you have that multidiscipline background, you kind of mentioned that you have some advantage where you get to draw some things and that kind of stuff. How's it kind of uniquely equipped you, though, to work on design-build projects with the company you're with?
I'm on a design-build project right now, actually. And it's interesting, our architect comes and co-locates with us. And it's different from a design bid build project, which I've been on in the past, where you write an RFI and send it to the architect, and that may be the first time that they see it, or you call them on the phone and say like, hey, this is coming, but they don't have time to be fully aware of what the problem is, where in design build, that's your team. So as soon as the challenge comes to my knowledge, I'll walk over and be like, hey, you know what, this challenge is coming up. We're not exactly sure what we're doing, but this is all the research I have. What do you know on it? And it's very, very collaborative. I think that answers the question.
And then did you also take a CM minor when you were architect?
It wasn't available when I did it, but I was in, I took a few of the CM classes and did the Reno competition and the DBIA competition. So those kind of substituted, I think, what would be a minor now today.
Okay. One of the advantages with New School, unlike other schools, is you have the minors in different disciplines. So an architect can take a CM minor or an interior design minor. An interior can take a CM minor, an architect minor. They kind of mix and match, which obviously is, the more you know, the better off you do. Now, Tim, what led you to come into this particular field? You've got a military background, Coast Guard. And Coast Guard, I find military don't always choose construction. They tend to go more towards law enforcement or other civil service type stuff. Yeah. So what led you into this path?
Kind of what led me into this path is kind of thinking really what I wanted to do. Because like you said, a lot of military do go law enforcement and kind of tend to go to that path just because other people are doing it or hearsay that it's a great path to go. And I looked at myself, and since I did law enforcement for a long time in the military, I found out that it really wasn't my passion or what I really wanted to see myself doing 20 years down the road, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think a lot of military folks feel the same way. Mm-hmm. So I kind of wanted to look at what I could start out of college not being at the bottom again. And construction management, I looked it up, and the pay out of college is almost 3 times higher than any other like salaries for starting students out of college. So I really got interested in that, and the more I got into it, I started to learn the team aspect of it, how you really have to work with others. You really get like kind of the family feel from an office that you get in the military, like the brotherhood inside of an office or out with the field workers and everything like that. It's kind of like you just build relationships, and relationships are a great part to have in this industry to succeed. So when doing that, it kind of just all fell into fruition that I really fell in love with this industry.
Okay, yeah, it's very much a team industry. Yeah. Everything, and that's why even the classes we always do team projects. And when I was in school, I hated team projects because there's always the same characters on every team, right? There's the slacker and the dominator and the one that knows everything but they won't talk, and all those people on the team, right? The one that never shows up. But in the industry, that's what it is. Everything's team-based. And I tell students a lot, if you don't want to be doing things in a team, go take up pottery, forget construction management. So we're going to take a short break. When we come back, I want to get into a little more about what you specifically do on your jobs. This is Building Solid Foundations. We're talking about construction management and training for construction management and how to plan for that career. My guest today, Emily Michael, Athena Valdovinos, and Tim Sparhawk. We'll be right back after this.
If you love them enough to relearn math so you can teach them math, then surely you'll check nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat to make sure they're correctly buckled in the back seat.
You made your house a reality. Homeschooling yourself on loans, color-coding listings, and flushing every toilet in a 20-mile radius. If you can ace house hunting, you can do it for retirement. Get on track with tips at aceyourretirement.org.
Hey, welcome back to Building Solid Foundations. I'm your host, Steve Matley. Today we're talking about construction management as a career and how to get ready for that. What kind of training and education do you need? So there are, in our program, you connected with students from other schools and other CM programs out there. I know several of you did, through competitions. And then there's kind of this little fraternity. Even if you went to different schools in this industry. So talk a little bit about what that was like and what you learned from that. Athena, I know you were on one of our teams.
Yeah, so it's funny. I was competing for ASC Reno in the VDC
Virtual Design and
category,
Construction.
Virtual
Right.
Design and Construction category. And we were flying to Chicago for a CMA national conference, and we were on the same flight as the boys from San Diego State. And they were like, hey, are you guys going to Reno? And we're like, who are these strangers approaching us at the airport? This is weird. And so we met them originally there. Then we competed against them in Reno. We beat them, not that that matters, just details.
Okay.
But
It's always
then
good to plug that.
I ended up interning with one of the gentlemen that I competed against at Balfour Beatty, actually, in the VDC department. And you really notice how small the industry is and how, the relationships you build, like you're talking about, from unlikely circumstances or situations really carry you through your career, because this is still somebody that I'll call and be like, hey, how are you doing? What are you working on? If I have a specific problem that I know, I'll call them and be like, what would you do? And it was competition to, I guess, camaraderie. Yeah.
Okay. Tim, you are also on a competition team. You were able to meet students from other schools. Tell us what that was like.
I mean, it was great. Like Athena said, it's kind of like you just meet them and it turns into camaraderie later down the road. We were kind of in the zone a lot, but we got to meet them here and there. We got to hear a lot of jokes about, oh, is this a new school? How they do that?
Yes.
I think that's, so that was getting good. But I mean, they all were nice. They were very professional. Got to learn a lot from them. And I think they got to learn a lot from us, and just picking each other's brains, and now getting to see them out in the workforce. It's kind of funny because they all remember, and you guys get to chat it up. You kind of build relationships as soon as you meet them again. Just start over.
Yeah, there's a little fraternity in the industry of people that have competed in those kind of competitions. So we actually, one of the faculty we hired over the last year was a Cal Poly SLO graduate who had competed at Reno. And that was one of the connections that he had with us. He actually came in to help coach our team, because he had a good experience doing that. And it's sort of inside track you get, I guess, with people in the industry. And you mentioned there was a DBIA, so when we went to the DBIA last year, on the plane, somebody saw my shirt with the New School on it, stopped me, and said, I need to talk to you if you're from New School. So on the plane, we talked, and I found out he was actually flying to get an award for a project they had done in Ventura County, a hospital project. But he worked for Clark Construction, and he actually was one of our MCM students. And our MCM program is all online, so I don't meet the students till graduation. They're just names on a roster. When he introduced himself, I'm like, oh, now I got a face to go with the name. It's so interesting. And then at the NAHB competition, I was finally able to meet one of my faculty members for the MCM program, who was there coaching one of the teams from Georgia. So it's funny when you go to these and kind of interact that way. Emily, I tried to get to do a competition team, and she refused me because she had so much on her plate, unfortunately, in your last term.
That is correct.
Yes.
But it's actually been interesting, even having not participated on the team. People that have All right. Oh, you're from New School. Oh, I remember competing against you guys. And I always jokingly respond, oh, I'm sorry you competed against us.
Yes. Yeah, we have a pretty good reputation up there. We got more than our share of wins in the last few years. And we've competed in other things. We are now competing on the residential side with the NHB competitions as well. So it's good to connect. And when you get in the industry, of course, that, as you mentioned, Athena, you have warm contacts with other people that you've met at these conferences. At the DBA conference in New Orleans this past year, our students connected up with students from 3 other California schools and kind of hung out together and talked with each other. They were, I think, from Berkeley and maybe Sac State, and there was maybe Fresno State. And they all kind of hung out as the California contingency. So it's kind of nice to see that. I think I want to talk to you a little about the master's idea. So you went through a different kind of construction management program than Tim and Emily did, a little different level. So a lot of the basics were kind of assumed that you already knew. It wasn't basic scheduling, basic estimating, it was contract. So tell us how that program went with kind of an architecture background jumping into a master's degree in CM.
So it was a really interesting and worthwhile experience for me. I came to New School out of high school and did my architecture degree. And then I went immediately from my architecture degree into an online program in CM. And that was, the initial part of it was more challenging than I thought, because you go from seeing people every day and talking to professors and working out problems in person to going fully online with people you've never met before and not seeing people. And that part was really hard.
They're from all over the world. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But what was really special about the program was my cohort was made of people who had 20, 30 years of experience. So while I was mulling through textbooks to try to be like, I have no idea what this means, like, let me read it, let me cite it perfectly, like, from a very academic approach, they were able to just pull from their experience and offer, like, very new perspectives, new from the textbook meaning. And that was, I think, a good, like, symbiotic relationship where I was, like, going straight out of text and they were building on the text with their own experiences and their own very specific instances where they could give a good example of how they overcame it. Yeah,
and they probably had an advantage because they probably had done a lot of the things that you're studying.
Yeah.
Right, and as I mentioned, in the bachelor's degree, we do things from a fundamental standpoint. We teach estimating, scheduling, contract docs, those type of things, project management. And the master's, it's kind of assumed you know a lot of that stuff, and it's more an advanced level, and so it's a little bit of a fire hose coming at you there. So,
I was ready, because I was prepped from my undergrad to just take a fire hose of information, but the textbooks were really good. So it was a lot of reading. I think I had underestimated the amount of reading, because coming from architecture, that's not a standard reading experience. You
Right.
read books, obviously, but it's not all about the books, and I think
it's much more studio-based,
Yeah.
actually doing drawings and
Yeah.
creating projects, right?
Yeah, and then the online masters was a lot of books. But
Look-
I still keep them on hand. They're good books.
Yeah, reading and writing is a lot of that. Okay, so I want to touch briefly on how well the education prepared you for what you're doing now in the field. So Emily, you are actively building projects every day. You're out there, you've got a team of people that you're kind of responsible to be a part of and partially oversee. So obviously you learned more on the job than you could possibly have learned in the school, but how did the school prepare you for that?
I kind of touched on earlier that you're the master of none, but you have to be able to communicate and know a little bit about everything. And I think that New School did a great job of not necessarily teaching you everything, but giving you the tools to be able to absorb it. Because if you have no background or no knowledge of this topic and these subjects, you're not just going to walk on a construction site and be able to have these conversations. So I think that New School does a really great job of just giving you the toolbox to be able to communicate and absorb and learn what you need to on site. And I think that that's all you can ask for from a program like this, is just setting you up for success when you actually get to the field and have to smartly communicate.
Okay, and Tim, you're working on a school project right now, a DSA project. How did the education itself help you, prepare you for what you're doing?
Well, I think New School is different because everybody's been in the profession before. All the professors have. So it's kind of getting real world teaching at a school environment. So when I went in there, like, I had no idea, like I said before, and you guys really broke it down for me where I could learn by talking to you guys. You guys took the time, and you guys really spoke about what's going on in the field. And until I got out in the field, I really didn't understand what you guys were talking about. But then when I came back, I was like, oh, this is all making sense now. This is really like coming together for me. And I think just the school in general like really does a great job of caring for the students, providing the knowledge that you need. And like I said, you guys are all professionals in the field, so it really brings light to things that you might not think about that normal teachers.
Experience-based education
Exactly.
as opposed to a book-based education.
Exactly.
Which
Yeah,
is a benefit.
and that's true. The professors at New School are not hired because of letters behind their name. It's not PhDs. They're all professionals that actively work in the industry. We're going to have to take another short break. When we come back, we're going to wrap this up with this conversation. We're talking about construction management as a career and what you need to do to prepare and learn if you want to choose that as a career path. I'm Steve Matley, your host. This is Building Solid Foundations, and we'll be right back after this. Don't go anywhere.
If you love them enough to relearn math so you can teach them math, then surely you'll check nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure they're correctly buckled in the back seat.
You made your house a reality. Homeschooling yourself on loans, color-coding listings, and flushing every toilet in a 20-mile radius. If you can ace house hunting, you can do it for retirement. Get on track with tips at aceyourretirement.org.
Welcome back to Building Solid Foundations. I'm your host, Steve Matley. Today we've been talking about construction management as a career choice and what you would need to do to train and get education to do that. I have three guests today. I have Emily Michael. She is with Hensel Phelps. I have Athena Valdivino. She is with Swinnerton Builders. And I have Tim Sparhawk with Balfour Beatty, and they have been sharing some of their experience working through the New School of Architecture and Design CM programs, both the undergrad and the graduate program. And what I want to get, especially from you, Emily, is not just for people going in, but especially for women going into this industry. What's your best tip for women that might want to consider this as a career?
I don't know that I would really give any different advice to women than I would to men. I think the biggest takeaway I would have is I think a lot of people get caught up in the unglamorous side of construction management, and it's not necessarily the most glamorous field, I'll give you that, but it is, in my opinion, one of the most rewarding you can choose. It's extremely versatile. There's so many avenues you can go. You can focus on the field and be a superintendent. You can focus on the contracts as a PM. You can focus safety or represent owners. There's so many avenues that you can go into with this one degree. I think anybody can really find kind of their niche once you get into it and you start playing with it a little bit. I would say just keep the fun part of it ahead of the unglamorous hard hat porta potty part of it.
Okay. Athena, for people that are kind of mulling around, maybe they're looking at, they kind of like the idea of buildings and stuff, but maybe they're thinking office type stuff, design work. What would you advise them?
People who like buildings, but they like office type work?
If they think that's the better way to go, but they don't understand that maybe the construction side might have some advantages.
I think also in construction, there are a lot of people in the office.
Right.
They're very important to the whole process, and it's a big team sport. Every player is needed, and everyone focuses on their own thing. Like Emily is saying, they all have their own niche, which is funny because it's actually a word that will divide two subcultures of the industry. There's people who say niche, and that you can tell that's like more of a construction field. Mm-hmm. And then you have people who will say niche, and that's more of like a architecture, interior design,
consultants, yes.
Consultants, owners, maybe
right.
Sometimes even. So just kind of where do you see yourself? There's a lot of different hats. Some are hard, right? Mm-hmm. But it's a fun industry, and there's a place for everybody, I think.
Okay. Tim, in your experience, if you wanted to advise people, say, coming out of the military into different options, what would you tell them?
Do it. Yeah, that would be my short answer right there. I mean, like I said, this field's awesome. Like, you get to meet so many cool people, and it's very rewarding from the beginning to the end. So if you want to do something different and really get out there and make a difference in a different way, I think it's a cool way to do it.
So what's the employment rate out there right now
For new
It's
school?
huge.
for anybody in the construction field?
There's opportunities
Yeah.
everywhere.
Like kind of opportunities going begging right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And how does the pay compare to, say, people you know that took different types of degrees in different schools?
I think a lot of other industries, it's hard enough to find a job, let alone find one that can cover living plus student loans, et cetera, life. But we're compensated very well, not to say that we don't work hard for it, and it's definitely something that you put in a lot of hours for and you earn at the end of the day. But there's going to be a job for you, there's going to be a well-paying job for you, and it's going to have a long career ahead of you if you choose to make it that.
Okay. And is there opportunity for advancement?
Always.
Always.
Always?
There's always going to be buildings.
Okay. And so it's kind of hard to outsource construction, isn't it? Because you have to go where the real estate is. You can't ship the real estate over to Asia, have it built, and bring it back. Okay, so there's always opportunities there. What would be your best tip on planning for college? What would be your best tip to research a college and find the one that fits you?
I think the thing that made the biggest difference to me in new school versus other schools that I looked at was it's kind of set up a lot similarly to almost a vacation type school, where it's very hands-on and the teachers are very experience-based, as opposed to just read this textbook, take this test, and you get a lot of great knowledge from their experience, as opposed to just those career professors who graduated and then got their PhD and then went straight to teaching, and that's what they know.
Okay, great. Anything to add on that? Choosing a school?
I think when choosing a school, aligning with a school that has a similar culture, like a culture that you relate to, or that you see that like that's where I want to go and grow kind of space. I think as for young people who are touring schools, to definitely go and see what it's like, meet other students that are actively there, and if you can talk to professors and kind of get a vibe for it, that would be my biggest.
Okay. Well, we have to wrap this episode up. This is Building Solid Foundations. I want to thank my guest today, Emily Michael. She is a field engineer, with Hensel Phelps. Athena Valdivino, she's a project engineer with Swinnerton Builders, and Tim Sparhawk, he is a project engineer with Balfour Beatty. Thank you all for being on the show today. And if you are out there looking for a future, do your research. Look into an industry such as this. You'll find it's very rewarding. This is Building Solid Foundations, helping you build the solid foundations for your future career. I'm your host, Steve Matley. We'll see you next time.
Ah.